Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to be able to speak to you today.
Great to speak to you as well.
Thanks for taking the time. Huge congratulations on this film. I have to admit, some skepticism going in. I thought...
Okay, you're not the only one.
I imagine I wasn't. I was immediately won over. And what a fantastic way to tell this story. And tell us how it came about and how many people also were sceptical about your idea.
I mean, every single person I approached for financing this film was skeptical, and it was why that process was exhausting and went on for many, many years. Because it's kind of a high concept idea, you know, like the idea of saying to them, look, I want to represent Robbie how he sees himself, not how we see him. And to which the question is, well, how does Robbie see himself? And you go, oh, he sees himself as a performing monkey. And they would say, right, but that's for some dream sequence in the film or some nightmare moment. It's not for the whole film. And I'd say, no, it's for the whole film, you know. And so that one decision cost me years of my life. And it actually made the film a very expensive proposition. So already you're going, it's hard enough presenting the idea from a narrative point of view, but then from a budget point of view, it also doubled the budget. So, yeah, I mean, it's the only reason I made the film. I wouldn't make the film otherwise. So that's why I just had to stand by it for however many years it was going to take to convince people.
And Robbie's story, I mean, obviously I grew up in the UK, you know, I'm an 80s baby, so through all of the period that's depicted, so it was such a nostalgia trip. But even just remembering all the things that Robbie's done in his life, you know, what an incredible individual. But it cuts across so many amazing themes as well, like, you know, what is life like in the UK? What was it like back then? How did we treat our celebrities? What is the cost of fame or the cost of creativity? And also about facing our own personal demons and addiction. So what spoke to you about telling his story, and how did you manage to sort of craft the narrative with so much to draw from?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think it's based on a series of interviews that I did with Rob, and I love the way in which he told his story. I think there's a real charm in the delivery. That's why we used quite a lot of his original recordings in the voiceover. I think it is an amazing story that he has, but I think it's an incredibly relatable one. There's a lot of self-doubt in there. There's a lot of a desire for, self-worth and getting that from other people. And it's not in the film, there's a really sad quote that Rob says, which is, if you don't love me, neither do I. And it's sort of, I mean, that comes across all the way through the film. And I think there's a lot of, you know, particularly today with social media, you know, there's a desire to get that approval and those likes, and I think that if you're reliant on that, it's a very slippery slope. So I think there's a lot that, whilst most people can't relate to what it is like to stand on stage and perform in front of 100,000 people, I think there is a lot that you can relate to in the relationship he has with his nan, the relationship he has with his parents, the relationship that he has with himself. All of those things I think are incredibly relatable.
Thought, you know, obviously this was also going to live and die by how effective the CGI was of crafting this chimpanzee. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing. You know, it's better than I've seen, I think, in any other kind of animated film.
The work that Weta did on this I think it's the best work they've ever done. And it's due to the passion. You know, Luke Miller, the visual effects supervisor, has to take a huge amount of credit, as does Andy Taylor, the visual effects producer, both remarkable men who rallied around this project. And the team that they put together and the passion that they put into this is just astonishing. And, you know, David Conley, who was running Weta at the time, his belief in this is the only reason the film got made, you know. So we're just very, very fortunate. They set up an office in Melbourne, Australia, in order to do this film. And yeah, I cannot, from a director's point of view, the idea of getting people together to realize something that is, you know, so out there and full of imagination, and having them put it together and put such passion into the creation of it and realize it in a way that is just so human and so beautifully flawed and heartbreaking and joyous and all these things that they managed to translate from John O'Davy's performance. And John O'Davy's, I have to say, is the most incredible actor in the way he portrayed Robbie in this film. And I think Weta did such justice to his performance.
And you can also tell that it's the same director behind The Greatest Showman because, you know, beyond just Robbie and how he's portrayed himself, you know, it's the whole visual spectacle of the film. And you've really relished in all the musical numbers. I mean, I love the scene when they're dancing in the street, you know, through the streets of London, the bits where he's on stage, you know, the Take That era. And then obviously towards the final climax. Did you have a favourite scene to pull off? And, you know, what was it like having that creativity to imagine all these scenes?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about Rob is he's got these absolute amazing hit songs, you know, to work with. But I don't have any one favourite. I mean, I think you fall in love with them as you work on them. So obviously, Rock DJ down Regent Street is the biggest musical number I've ever shot, you know. I think She's the One with Nicole is one of the most beautiful things I've ever been involved in. And it is a credit to Ashley Wallen, the choreographer, and Jenny Griffin, his choreography assistant. They danced that number time and time and time again. And then Patrick Carell, one of the creative producers, would cut it together. And that's probably the one that we iterated on the most. There's the most versions of that until we got to what we ended up shooting. And then, you know, things like Royal Albert Hall at the end, I think is just a really kind of goosebumps sort of performance. Come Undone, I think, is one of my favourite. Because him driving in the car and singing and just the torment of watching him unravel over the course of that number, I think is incredibly powerful.
Well, I think I'm out of time, but thank you so much for sharing all that with me.
No,
I really love the fact that, you know, it takes us to all those euphoric places, but also isn't afraid of, you know, going to the darker places too, which I think a lot of films don't do that much these days. So thanks so much.
They don't, no. Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.